Alright guys, we are going to get started with our 3.3 notes. You should have made a copy of the fill in the blank notes for this. It is going through the process of photosynthesis. We will use this information combined with information that we get from section 3.4 just to kind of see how plants obtain energy, what cycle the materials go through, and then like what's produced, how we use that, how the plants use that, and so on. This will go through after Christmas break as well, so we'll do some more review, but we need to get our notes set up. So if you guys are ready, we are going to begin. So the first thing we talk about is the sources of energy, a process by which a cell captures energy in sunlight and uses it to make food is called photosynthesis. So the term photosynthesis comes from the Greek words photo, which means light, and then synthesis, which means putting together. Nearly all living things obtain energy either directly or indirectly from the energy of sunlight captured during photosynthesis. So grass obtains energy directly from the sunlight because it makes its own food during that process of photosynthesis. And later on in our curriculum, we will talk about how there are different levels of organisms and how they obtain that energy and how much energy they get through photosynthesis. So grass is considered a producer, and then other organisms eat the grass, eat plants, things like that to obtain energy. But grass is that direct, it has that direct connection with the sun so that it gets its energy directly from the sun. So then when a zebra eats the grass, it gets the energy that has been stored in the grass. So the grass, the organelles, the chloroplasts in that grass have converted the materials that it's needed and made it into food, made it into that energy. And then as the zebra eats it, it gets those nutrients from the grass, but that also means it's getting that energy from the grass as well. And so then, in the same regard, the lion obtains energy that's stored in the zebra, which has energy that was stored in the grass. But it's an indirect source of the sun's energy because it doesn't go from like the sun straight to the lion. It has to go through other organisms. So plants manufacture their own food through the process of photosynthesis. And then, like our warm up from today, an organism that makes its own food is called an autotroph. And then an organism that cannot make its own food, which includes that zebra, the lion, and even us as humans, are called heterotrophs. So we have to consume other organisms to obtain energy. So there are other heterotrophs, or most heterotrophs obtain food by eating other organisms like we would, but then there are some other heterotrophs, such as fungi, that actually absorb their food from other organisms through, those different processes, or they kind of like melt it or like put chemicals into it to kind of turn it into mush and absorb it. So it's very interesting. The second part of our notes is that there are two sources of photosynthesis. So what that means is that it is a complex process, and during photosynthesis, plants and other organisms use the energy from the sun to then convert carbon dioxide, which is a gas in the air, and water, so like water vapor or actual water molecules, get converted into oxygen, and then sugars, which is used as that energy in that food. So you can think of photosynthesis as taking place in two stages. The first stage is capturing the sun's energy, and then the second stage is producing sugars or producing that food. So the first stage of photosynthesis involves capturing the energy in the sunlight. So this, how this happens in plants, it occurs in the leaves. That's why they're very green. That's why you see them changing colors and that process. So the green color comes from the pigments that are inside the leaf, and they are colored compounds that absorb light. And then the main photosynthetic pigment in chloroplast, which is that organelle in plants that help this process occur, is chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll absorbs red and green light, but it doesn't do a good job of absorbing green light, so that's why it reflects it, and that's what we end up seeing. So chlorophyll captures light energy and uses it to power then the second stage of photosynthesis. So it takes that energy and it's now going to put it to work. So this little diagram, you can see we get water, carbon dioxide, and we get that light energy. Water can be in like water vapor, just kind of in the air, and then water can also be absorbed through the roots of the plant. And that's going to then travel up through the stem and into the leaves to start that process. Now, the next stage is what the cell uses that captured energy to then break down the different materials and produce the sugars and the oxygen. So there are two raw materials or two reactants that go into the plant, and that's water and carbon dioxide. So, like I said with the diagram, the roots absorb the water, or water can be in the air that goes into the leaf then, but it moves up through the stem and into the leaves. Carbon dioxide, because it's a gas in the air, is going to enter the plant through small openings on the underside of the leaves, which are called the stomata. So once that's in the leaves, the water and the carbon dioxide move into the chloroplast, and then the chloroplasts start working through the process to make the food. So inside the chloroplast, then the water and carbon dioxide undergo a complex series of chemical reactions. So they are going to actually like break down, and the molecules are going to separate into the specific individual elements. They're going to react, they're going to recombine to form new elements and to create that sugar, which is that food for the plants. So these reactions are all powered by the energy that the plant receives from the sun, and then they produce chemicals as products, and that's that end result. So the first product that is produced is sugar. So this has 6 carbon atoms, and then they have the chemical formula that's set up as C6H12O6. So this is stating that it has 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. So this sugar for plants is glucose. Now there are other compounds that are formed and other types of sugars that can be formed as well, but glucose is the main one used as a food and what's produced. So sugars are a type of carbohydrate. So that means that the cells can then use that energy to carry out important functions, to continue growing, to produce flowers, to produce seeds, all of that. And that carbohydrate gives them that nice quick burst of energy. that they need. Then the second product of photosynthesis is oxygen, which exits the leaf through the stomata. So carbon dioxide enters the leaf, but then oxygen is able to actually be released or exit the leaf from the stomata as well. So almost all the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere was produced by living things through the process of photosynthesis. When we go into our activity on photosynthesis tomorrow, you'll receive a little bit more information and some fun little statistics about the amount of oxygen that can be produced and how it can sustain other living organisms. Now, there is a specific equation for photosynthesis, how it's set up, and that is in this picture below, which you should have already set up on your notes, so you do not need to type that equation in. But this is important because when we have these equations in chemistry, they have to balance out because what goes in has to come out, even if it's in a different setup or a different way. So we have 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 water molecules that go in or are the raw materials or those reactants in the photosynthesis equation. And then due to that light energy or that sunlight, that helps start the reaction and it helps those molecules break down, and then they rearrange to form a sugar and 6 oxygen molecules. Now you will notice if you counted all the numbers up, we have 6 carbon dioxide on the raw material, so on the left side, and then there's that C6 with the sugar, so that balances. And then if you take 6 times 2 for the H, so that water molecule, 6 times 2 is 12, and we get that H12 in the sugar, so those balance. And then the oxygen, there's a bunch of different ones, and they kind of all float and combine together, but you have the 6 and the 2 in the carbon dioxide, so that gives you 12, and then you have another 6 in the water, so you should have 18 oxygen on the reactant side. And then if we look, we have 6 oxygen left in the sugar, and then there's a 12 oxygen for just the regular oxygen molecules, and 6 plus 12 gives us 18. So it shows that balanced equation. This is all the more complex we're going to get with how the equations are set up. You don't have to worry about trying to balance anything, but we are going to look and compare. And obviously, if it's something that interests you in chemistry, it does get pretty fun trying to figure out how to balance these equations. But for photosynthesis, this is how it's set up, and you can see it. So those raw materials, like we go through, there's 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. They are on the left side of the equation, which is what we call the reactants or the raw materials. And then the products, or what's produced, there's 1 molecule of a sugar and then 6 molecules of the oxygen, and they are on the right side of the equation. And then that arrow, we would read it as yields or produces. This connects the raw materials to the products, and then that light energy is just representing what's necessary to help that chemical reaction occur, and that's usually written above the arrow. Other equations might have like heat or cold, things like that, something that's going to help speed up that reaction. So plants then use some of that sugar that they have created for food. Obviously, they need the energy, and that's where it comes from. So they break down the sugar molecules to release the energy, and then that energy can be used to carry out the plant's functions. Some of the sugar molecules are converted into other compounds, such as cellulose, and then other sugar molecules can even be stored in the plant cells for later use. And then when you eat food from plants, so if you eat like a salad or you eat some product of a plant, even if it's like potatoes or carrots or an apple, you are eating the plant's stored energy. Kind of interesting. So once you are finished with these notes, if you need to go back through the video and get anything you missed, you can do that. Otherwise, please make sure you have the notes submitted. And this is what we were working on today. If you have any questions, please just send me an email. Otherwise, have a good day.